So I am Emily Moose, and I am the Director of Communications and Outreach for Greener World. And I am coming to y'all today from Central North Carolina. And it is pretty decent weather here so far today. So a little chilly, but yeah, pretty good. Late fall, soon to be winter weather. And in addition to being the Director of Communications and Outreach, I'm also the labeling coordinator at A Greener World, which is probably more relevant to today's conversation. And so we are going to dive deep into food labels, and our goal is for you to come away from today's webinar feeling better informed about the choices that you're making food-wise, and to help make sure that whatever money that you are spending on food is well spent, and that you are getting your money's worth for the claims that you are supporting with your food dollar. So we know times are tight right now, and we want folks to be making the best use of their food budget, and doing having all the positive impact that they hope to have. So with that, just a few housekeeping things. We are recording this session, so if you have to step away for a bathroom break, you can see what you missed later. You can also share it with your buddies who weren't able to make it today. And if you have questions as we're going through the webinar, ideally we would like to save questions for the end. But if you need clarification on something, or something's not confusing, if I use jargon and terminology that isn't clear, just pipe up and drop it in the chat box or the Q&A, and we'll do our best to clarify in real time. Otherwise, we will do questions at the end and have a little discussion as we get to that point. And we do have a few polls scattered throughout this, so we'll be doing some quizzes and some polls just so that we can engage a little bit, and it's not just me talking the whole time. So yeah, with that, welcome everyone, and let's get into it. So, A Greener World. So who are we? Why are we here? Why are you here listening to us talk about food labels? So we believe in empowering sustainable solutions in food and farming. And we believe strongly that good food should be a right and not a privilege, and that everyone should be able to eat food that doesn't wreck the planet and that doesn't have negative impacts on other people in the environment and animals. And so we work every day to connect farmers and consumers around this idea. And our goal is to connect farmers and consumers around meaningful principles of sustainability. And we do that through certifying practices and giving people the information they need to make informed choices. So our first poll, just to kick this off, so if you had to choose just one of these attributes, one of these qualities in your food, which is the most important to you? So we've got animal welfare, fighting climate change, protecting biodiversity, and supporting independent farmers, and health and nutrition. So I'll give everybody just a few minutes to put your answer in there. And we'll see what our fellow attendees think. Sometimes these are surprising. We'll give it just a little Jeopardy moment to finish up. And Lauren, yeah, feel free to close it out whenever you're ready. And once we do, we should be able to see the results pop up on the screen. Oh, interesting. Yeah, kind of a even split. So yeah, 25% animal welfare, 17% fighting climate change, same for biodiversity, independent farmers, and then another 25% health and nutrition. So yeah, it's hard to pick just one of those. And ideally, our food system can help us achieve all of them, which is what we try to do with your help. So Greener World, we are a nonprofit, and our reason for existing is to promote food and farming systems that have a positive impact, and that's on the environment, society, and animals. And so the two primary ways that we achieve that goal is through educating consumers, so things like this, helping people understand food labels and understand the impact of their food purchases, and policy choices too. Anybody who's in a decision-making capacity, we want folks to understand how decisions impact the real world when it comes to food and farming. So that's one way. Then the other way is to through our certification programs. And so that is going back to that original purpose and principle that I mentioned in the first place about connecting producers and consumers around those positive changes. So we are working with over 6,000 farms across 3 million acres globally. And we are in the US, Canada, UK, Ireland, South Africa, and increasingly in other countries around the world as well. Oh, India, we're beginning to work in India as well. So we're adding new regions and countries all the time, and there is tremendous interest across the world in reintroducing and establishing transparency in food systems. So we're definitely seeing this as a global trend or interest or something that is increasingly important to people everywhere. And I think part of that is because fewer and fewer people grow up on a farm or live on a farm and have that firsthand experience. And so, along with that, there is a hunger for information. So our goal is to help provide that. And we do that with credible third-party certification, which we will go into a little bit later. So just to kind of set the scene here, if you have been into the egg cooler at a grocery store recently, you may have been overwhelmed, like many of us are, by the sheer number and array of claims that are used to try to make you buy stuff and to make you feel good about it and to make you feel that your purchase is fulfilling some deep need in you to connect to food and nature and the cycles of life. And so we'll go through some of those claims and terms here that are using very highly evocative emotional language to imply practices without actually using those practices. So this is a pretty typical image of egg cooler at the grocery store. And so we are going to go through some of the claims that you'll find here and help you open this cooler with a little bit more, armed with a little more information. So one of the tools that we use to help people navigate the grocery store or farmer's market or online or wherever you're buying food is a handy little guide called Food Labels Exposed. We have been putting this out for many years now, and it is a really, really useful tool to help you, a reference to look and see which labels are reliable. And this is available for free download on our website, and we love feedback on it. If you see a claim that should be in here and isn't, let us know. We'll add it, we'll look it up, and we are always happy to answer your emails, calls, messages on social media, whatever. If you need information about food labels, we are your go-to resource and we are happy to help. So from our perspective, the basic types of label claims, really you can break everything down into these two categories. The first is if it's audited or third-party certified, and that means somebody has actually been to the farm or the plant or the processing facility, and an auditor has been there, somebody that actually knows what they're looking at, who has experience in farming, and who can look at the farm or plant and say, okay, yes, these practices are being met. That is an audited claim. And then on the other hand, you have an unaudited claim or a claim that doesn't have any third-party certification. And that is just a big question mark. You really have no clue. And we see all the time companies making really big, bold claims that are completely false. So you really can't have a lot of confidence in claims that aren't audited. And so it's really important to take that with a grain of salt and to ask for more information and to ask for a credible third-party certification. If somebody's making a claim, they should back it up. So even on verified programs, there's a range of reliability. So we've made this graphic to kind of illustrate the increasing reliability from the bottom up to the top here. So you can see at the bottom, we've got a retailer program. And so you'll see a common one down here. This is the Global Animal Partnership Program. And so this is founded by Whole Foods, and you can tell that you're going to see it in store there, and you could see that there probably is a financial interest or a vested interest from the marketing department on the outcome of this program. Going up the line here, we've got a participatory guarantee program. This is like a peer-to-peer program. It's we would not classify this as an independent third-party certification. It's essentially, you're a farmer and you invite your neighbor over and they come look at your practices and say good job, and maybe you go to their farm the next year. There is a level there's a lack of independence in terms of the assessment of the practices. It can be good for mentoring and and networking, but again, not a third-party certification. All right, so then we have a producer program. This is an example of this is the American Humane Certified Program, and this is largely seen as the baseline of decent practices or standard practices, I should say, conventional practices in livestock production. Not a high welfare claim. Some people see it just as the absence of abuse, but again, not a meaningful welfare claim. Then going up, you have producer independent programs. So American Grass-Fed Association would be one of these. This is a producer association that is writing standards. So again, this is not a truly independent program. Then we have independent vested program. Certified Humane and USDA Organic are good examples of this, where these are audited programs, but the standards are written to appeal to the widest swath of producers. So there's a financial incentive to make the program as broadly inclusive as possible. Then at the top, and when I say broadly inclusive, I mean by standards that may not be delivering the highest, the most meaningful welfare or environmental outcomes. And we'll talk about organic a little bit later as well. Then at the top, you've got truly independent programs, and these are examples of programs where we are not financially, these are ones offered by Greener World, and we are not financially dependent on receiving funds from these audits to exist. And so we fundraise, we want our programs to be available to anyone. We don't want anyone to be priced out of a meaningful third-party certification. And so while we do charge an audit and application fee, they are very modest, and we fundraise when people can't afford those. And so this is, we are able to write standards from a truly independent perspective based on best practice, science, farmer, being pragmatic for farmers, and delivering the best outcomes. So what is third-party certification? So as an organization that works globally, it is really, really interesting to see the reception or the awareness around third-party certification in the U.S. where I'm based. We also work in Canada, but around the world, as I mentioned. But I'm most familiar with the U.S. and Canada. So so third-party certification is, it's easier to think about it in terms of a house or a car, for instance. So we're really used to, we wouldn't buy a house without looking at the appraisal or getting it inspected. We wouldn't buy a car without getting the Carfax report. And yet, when it comes to food, for whatever reason, we just, drop it in and don't really think twice and don't ask a lot of questions. And that is starting to change. And it's a good thing, because the way that we grow food has a tremendous impact on the environment, on our society as a whole, and on our ability to produce food for ourselves in the future. So third-party certification is a really important way to make sure that the impacts that we're having on our environment and on our society through agriculture are positive impacts. That can be accomplished through policy as well, but we all know policy is a slow-moving beast. And an early friend of the program, who was a representative in New York, Louise Slaughter, she always her position was that policy follows the market, and so we have been working to move the market toward sustainable practices with the support of farmers and consumers for over a decade, and we are seeing progress. So we are doing that, back to the Carfax or appraisal or whatever, that's what we do through farm audits. And so we're actually going to the farm, and we visit farms every year, and we are reviewing that farm against the set of standards that's published that they are asking to be audited for. So it's a voluntary program. We're not like, out there sneaking onto farms. Like, it's farms coming to us and saying, hey, I want to be able to tell my customers that I use these amazing practices. Will you please come onto my farm, verify that so that I can use your logo on my products? And we say, sure. So that's what we do. And being able to do that is a way for that farmer to demonstrate compliance with really meaningful standards and get credit in the marketplace. So just going through a few claims here. This is one of my favorite bad ones, natural, which just really shouldn't exist. I mean, this is like, so Consumer Reports actually had a campaign a few years ago they called it Kill Natural. And their goal was to just eliminate this from the marketplace because it is so widely misunderstood and abused, really, by marketers that it's completely useless from a consumer perspective. It doesn't mean what anyone would want it to mean. And so when you see this claim, this is specific to meat and dairy. When you see this, but it's even more meaningless for fruits and vegetables and other processed foods. But when you see it on meat, it means minimally processed and no artificial ingredients. That's it. And so people are understandably out there and, buying natural meat thinking that they're getting something special. And all it means is, if you buy a natural steak, that just means it's steak. Like, it's probably not wood, it's not a meaningful claim. It does not mean that animals were raised outdoors on pasture. It doesn't mean responsible use of antibiotics, nothing about hormone use, absolutely nothing about welfare standards, environment, non-GMO, and it is definitely not third-party certified or audited in any way. And so this is one of the most meaningless claims that is out there. And yet it is effective because it hits those, emotional triggers that we were talking about earlier. Because when you see the word natural, you think, oh, nature, like, oh, I can feel good. This is healthy. This is, clean and fresh. And, this is good for me and good for the planet. But you really don't know anything about that product other than it would probably test true to the type of meat in a lab. All right, so we have another poll. So we have two images here, and one is of an organic farm, and one is of a farm that is using the claim cage-free. So for the picture on the left, actually, Lauren, do you mind putting up that poll and make sure I'm going to read the question right so I don't confuse everybody? All right, here we go. Okay, yeah, cool. So which image is showing an organic farm? We'll just give everybody a few, maybe 5 seconds to do that. I'm gonna take a drink of water. Okay. All right. Oh, I better submit my answer too. Okay. Okay. Let's see what we say. Once we get all the guesses up, we'll reveal. Okay, interesting. All right, so 60% of folks said image A was organic and 40% said image B. All right, so let's look and see. All right, so the one on the left is organic. The one on the right is cage-free. So some folks were probably surprised at the question from the outset because you might have imagined that organic laying hens or meat birds actually lived outdoors, scratching around for bugs and pecking and flapping and running and all of that. That is not a requirement of organic standards. And cage-free has even fewer standards than organic and is also not audited. So in both of these systems, birds are packed closely together indoors and are typically have the tips of their beak cut off. So these are not what most people would imagine when they see these two claims. And so if you are looking for a high welfare pasture-based system, you're going to need to ask for more than these labels. And it's important to say, like there are organic farmers, there are probably farmers that are marketing as cage-free that are going above and beyond these practices. But when you're looking at a claim, you really have to look at the baseline of what that claim means, because you can't expect anything more from that claim. So a little bit more on the egg aisle. Cage-free, as we just saw, usually means birds are raised indoors. Free range is another interesting one. It only has an official meaning for birds raised for meat. So when you see this on egg-laying hens or pork or other products, you have no clue what it means. And even in chickens raised for meat, it is not defining the access, what access means, or the quality of the range. So this is that like proverbial, warehouse with a door at the end of it that the birds may or may not go out. And so this is a very meaningless term when it comes to consumer expectations. And another thing that's worth noting while we're talking about cage-free is that cage-free doesn't mean anything when it comes to broiler chickens or chickens raised for meat, or meat birds in general, because those animals are not typically raised in cages in the first place. So that's one of those cute little marketing tricks that you really should not waste your money on. All right, pasture raised. So this is another one. It sounds so good, and you just don't know, because if it is not audited, one person's pasture raised could be, they went outdoors on pasture one day out of 365, and that probably isn't going to meet your expectation of it. And there is no standard definition of this term. There's no verification of the term. So again, if you really are trying to find foods from animals that were raised on pasture, you have to look for a credible third-party certification that gives you that assurance. And a lot of people think that most animals are raised on pasture. That is not the case. It is a tiny fraction of agricultural production right now where animals are actually raised outdoors. And so we represent farmers in that tiny sliver. And it is important to support farmers doing that and give them credit in the market where they deserve it, and to not reward products that are claiming that and not doing it. So animal welfare approved, this is one of the labels that we certify. It's the only food label that ensures high welfare and meaningful access to pasture and range. All right, so organic. Again, many organic producers go above and beyond this, the USDA definition of organic, and many of those are actually certified. I should clarify, the ones who do go above and beyond are typically seeking out an additional certification to prove that and to demonstrate to their customers that they're exceeding the low baseline of organic standards. Because unfortunately, in the US, we have our standards for organic are far below what exists in many other parts of the world. And it's, for a variety of reasons, among those intense lobbying by industrial organic producers. But as it stands, the standards in the United States for organic are not meaningful for most consumers' expectations, especially around animal products. There have been efforts to add a meaningful baseline of welfare requirements to organic, but those have so far failed. And so in the meantime, producers that want to show that they are going above and beyond typically will use a certification like Animal Welfare Approved or another one to show, hey, I'm doing more than what is required by this low baseline. So in animal production, you'll see animals are fed organic feed. There is no antibiotic use in organic production, which is actually can give producers an incentive to withhold treatment, and it's a really unfortunate strange thing in the organic standards that's evolved here. That is not the case in other parts of the world, because the real problem with antibiotic overuse in agricultural production it's the abuse of antibiotics, not the use. So when antibiotics are used therapeutically, when there's no other option, when an animal needs treatment, that's the way antibiotics were intended. What was not intended was for antibiotics to be used on a routine basis, and that's where you get into trouble with antibiotic resistance. But completely eliminating antibiotics from the system or from the farmer's toolbox is not a solution either. So our animal welfare approved standards allow antibiotics on a therapeutic basis when they're needed, and you have to double the withdrawal time. So there's not going to be antibiotics in your food. That's not an issue. The real concern is antibiotic resistance, and we are in a pretty scary point of losing antibiotics faster than we are discovering them, and we could very well reach a point where we are unable to treat common diseases and use antibiotics for human health. So it is a concern. There is a range of organic labels, so read the fine print on those. Look and see if it's 100% or whatever percentage, if you're interested in that piece of it. All that said, organic does not mean pasture raised. It does not mean responsible antibiotic use. Doesn't mean high welfare standards or healthy or independent farmed. So grass-fed. Okay, so this is a up-and-coming claim you will see. This is really popular. The market for grass-fed products is expected to grow to 14.5 billion between 2020 and 2024. So this is a very popular claim that people are looking to for health and sustainability reasons, but they're not always getting what they pay for. And so we really caution folks to be very, to scrutinize this claim hard. And we actually developed a comparison chart that's available on our website to help people see which claims they can trust. The baseline definition in USDA's book is quite low. It allows grass-fed feedlots, basically. It allows hormone use, it allows antibiotics, routine antibiotics, and you can actually supplement with grain as long as you note it. And it's a very loose definition. And so we actually developed a grass-fed label at the request of farmers who were looking for a meaningful grass-fed claim. So again, yeah, if you want to check out that comparison chart, it's on our website. Have at it. And we will be sending this presentation out later, so you'll have that link as well. Okay, so that was a lot about what labels mean, and maybe a few disappointments in there. But there is hope. There are meaningful food labels out there. And it's important to think about what people want food labels to mean. Where are we going? Where would we like to be with how meaningful food labels are or could be? So Consumer Reports did some interesting research where they found that 88% of people believe that a farm should be inspected to make a humane claim. And that does not have to happen. All you have to do is write a little note to USDA, say, yes, this is what humane means to me, and check, go for it. And so people also want to know if their food is coming from, where their food is coming from, 93%. And so our standards actually do require that the country of origin be labeled. That is not a federal requirement right now. People want consistent standards, seems fair. They want to know how antibiotics are being used. They think that a humane label should cover slaughter. And Animal Welfare Approved is actually the only welfare label that covers the animal's entire life and covers every species. So we look at slaughter for all species and ensure welfare throughout the process. And folks also believe that a humane label should mean that the animals go outdoors. Actually go outdoors, and not just have the door that who knows if it's open and who knows if they go outside. And again, ours is the only welfare label that requires outdoor pasture and range. More research. This is about labels and their impact on consumer purchasing. And this was like this. I mean, we just had a party when we saw this. This was a report that looked at different food labels and how basically how much people trusted them and how much of an impact they had on their own purchasing. And so AWA, Animal Welfare Approved, had the highest impact of any food label, which was just like a huge thrill to us, because we really are like David in the market of a lot of Goliaths when it comes to label claims. And it was really rewarding to see that transparency and meaningful standards are rewarded by consumers. So the only label that had a higher impact on purchasing was the Energy Star label, which obviously is not a food label, but that was pretty cool to see. And it's a testament to our farmers, it's a testament to the team, and to being able to write standards based on delivering real sustainability. So that research also showed an increased demand for third-party certification, transparency, and looking at animal welfare as an indicator of other attributes. So it sort of makes sense, intuitively thinking, like if a farm is taking care of their animals in a really conscientious manner, they're probably being conscientious in other ways too, with their workers, with environmental practices, with social impact in their community. And so we're in the process of doing some research around that, looking at our farms. But anecdotally, the biodiversity practices on our farms is amazing. We did a really cool survey a few years ago, and just looking at practices used on farms. And we weren't surprised, but it was just it was neat to see, and also with respect to employee treatment as well. So excited to share more about that in the coming years. So that's all well and good, but some of that research was done a year ago, and things have really changed. We are in the middle of a deadly pandemic. We are in the middle of a recession. People are losing their homes, they're losing their lives, and life has completely changed. So how has that impacted things? And is it just an elite frou-frou thing to even be talking about food labels? So in the early days, I'll just go back a little bit to how it impacted us as an organization and how it impacted farmers and the people that we work with. So when COVID first hit in March, we just immediately, we suspended audits. Obviously, we couldn't travel. All of the events that we normally would go to were canceled. And so our first stop is always our farmers. So we put a pause on everything and called our farmers and checked in. And what we found was that the goal of that was to make sure that we were taking care of folks and could fill needs, and just what were the needs on the ground. So what we found was that farmers who had established markets with consumers already and were already maybe marketing online, or had those relationships already, they were doing okay, and in some cases were even having trouble meeting demand. And so that was good to see on that front. On the other side of the coin, there were farms who had been supplying institutional markets, schools, office buildings, restaurants. Oh my gosh, like the restaurants just closed overnight. And so folks lost their market immediately. And so along with that, there was also an increased need at food banks and increasing food insecurity among everyone, general public everywhere. And that continues today. And so what we did was to pair with the support of our farmers and with the support of donors to link farms and food banks together, and to help facilitate getting food from farms who had lost market to food banks who needed food. So that was one way that we were able to make that connection. It was all down to incredible grassroots support and people just wanting to help meet those two needs, to help people get food who needed food, and really good, nutritious food, and then also to keep farmers in business and help them weather that storm. So that was early on. As the summer progressed, there was some research that came out about, or a report from the Hartman Group that was looked at people's idea of value changing during the pandemic, and what were they looking at food to do for the world, and were people just going to hunker down and just focus on price only, stock up, and just go into survival mode. And that did happen to some extent, but there was also an evolution of people being interested in the wider systemic impacts of their food purchasing, and going to the grocery store and seeing empty shelves and wondering, oh, where did that come from? Like, oh, how can I make sure that the person who's providing my food is going to be here for the long haul? So we saw a renewed interest in the food system and in systemic change. I mean, the stories about workers at meat plants, we got a lot of inquiries about, from people wanting to make sure that where they were purchasing their food was going to people who were respecting workers and who were respecting all parts of the system. So it'll be, we're still in the middle of this, and it's getting tougher economically. So if you are one of those people who has a little extra money and can help people who need it, there's definitely need right now. And so it's going to take all of us working together to get through this. But our approach is to be the short, medium, and long term, to offer short, medium, and long term solutions. So getting food to people who need it now, and also making sure that farms survive medium term, and delivering that long-term systemic change, because the impacts of industrial food are disproportionately borne by the most vulnerable people on our planet. And so it's important to shift that food system for the long term as well. So that was a long spiel, but takeaways looking ahead. So people are increasingly interested in how what they eat impacts the planet. And third-party certification is a really great way to help achieve that. So we also have, in terms of ensuring that success for the long term, having consistency around what different claims and terms mean is crucial. Otherwise, you just get in situations where, cage-free was a really good example. So people, got really excited about cage-free eggs and thought that was going to be a panacea solution to animal welfare. It's not. The chicken doesn't really know. It doesn't have you might feel better, but the chicken doesn't feel better. So these are, when you're asking for big change, you got to be specific. So that's where standards and third-party certification come in. All right, so a little bit about our certifications. This is the A Greener World family of labels. We just keep growing. I think kind of the path of our evolution, we started with animal welfare approved. That was our kind of our foundational certification. And this is the only welfare label that ensures the outdoor pasture-based management, no animal byproducts, no routine antibiotics, no painful mutilation, so no debeaking or tail ducking. It is for independent farmers. We do have producer groups, but they're groups of independent farmers who are working together to supply markets. We have full traceability, and we look at every stage of the animal's life. So it's a very comprehensive label that has, as you saw, significant standing among consumer advocates. Well, actually, Consumer Reports named us as the only highly meaningful label for animal welfare, outdoor access, and sustainability. And they said that we were the only welfare label in which they had confidence. So good reputation among people who are critically looking at food labels, which is exactly what we want people to do. So I'm very glad to see that. Grass-fed, certified grass-fed by A Greener World is a grass-fed label that means everything you want it to mean, basically. You have to be animal welfare approved to be certified grass-fed. So it rests on that foundation of the highest welfare standards. And it also ensures 100% for grass and forage diet. So there's a bunch of other grass-fed labels that, for whatever reason, they're like, yeah, well, mostly grass, but a little bit of grain. It's like, why call it grass-fed? Just, call it pasture-raised or whatever you could meaningfully claim. But if there's grain in the system, from our perspective and our standards, that would not qualify as grass-fed. Then we have, we're working on organic, being able to offer organic certification. We have a non-GMO label as well, and this also, when it is on an animal product, if it's on meat, dairy, or eggs, then that animal has been raised to animal welfare approved standards as well. So all of our labels have welfare at the core if it's an animal product. Non-GMO, our non-GMO certification is also more affordable for producers than other non-GMO labels, and it has a more meaningful standards around feed. So other labels allow a lot of contamination in animal feed, and we do not. So we have the most meaningful non-GMO label out there. Salmon Welfare Certified, this is one of our newer labels. This is based on the RSPCA standards, and we are really excited to be entering this world. We've got a really cool salmon producer out in the Midwest that also grows hydroponic greens as well. So that's an exciting one. I think we'll be looking at more seafood coming on, seafood products as we move forward. And then Certified Regenerative, that's our newest label, and we are just entering the pilot phase of that. We are really, really, really excited about this one. This is, it's been a few years in the making, and we have had tremendous interest from producers on this. This is a label that is looking at the whole system. So it's looking at welfare, it's looking at social justice, it's looking at air quality, water quality, soil health, responsible wild harvesting. It's looking at financial sustainability. So, none of this matters if farmers can't survive, into the future. And so it's a very comprehensive label that is based on a farm's own plan for reaching all of these milestones that are set in the standards and for delivering the outcomes that are set in the standards. And so it's a partnership between us and farms where we're helping them develop a plan and then holding them accountable to that plan. And so the farmer response has been awesome, and really excited to see the general public response as well. So, and we actually have a webinar on that if anybody's interested on what regenerative means too. So a little bit about the standards that we have for animals. You can see all the different animals and products and certifications there. And we also do things like, so on the non-GMO, we just certified a non-GMO chutney that's really awesome out in Washington. So we have other products too, protein drinks and whey powder and all kinds of stuff, jams and jellies and soap. So go check out the directory. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. So we are accredited ourselves. And so we know what it's like to get audited, and we hold ourselves to the same high standards that we, and the same transparency that we advertise and implement in our other programming. And so ISO is basically like the certifier. And so they come to us every year, they look through our systems, they pick out, they follow an audit all the way through, they make sure that we are being fair and consistent in our work. All right, so how can we help you? And I will, I'm excited to hear the questions that folks might have too, but in general, we are here to be your partner in navigating the food system. We all have these questions, where can I find sustainable food? Like, what do food labels mean? What can I do to have a positive impact with my decisions and my food purchases? We all eat food. So we are here to help make that as straightforward a process as possible, and to make sure that you're not wasting your money. So one of the major ways that we do that, our most popular section on our website is our directory. And so this is free, open to the public. Love your feedback. This is a way for folks to find farms, restaurants, grocery stores, CSAs, farmers markets, any outlet that is offering certified products, and then farms that are selling to the public are also listed here. So definitely invite you to check that out, bookmark it, and let us know if something's missing. Let us know, and go and thank the people who are doing it too. I mean, I think that's I put that in this part too. It's like it's important to appreciate people that are doing good work. And so we in addition to the directory, here's some other ways that you guys can get involved. So we talked about this. Don't waste your money on meaningless claims. Budgets are tight. If you have any extra money to spend on a premium for a product, make sure it's worth it, or just buy, store brand, honestly, really, like, don't, companies who are making money off of, hiding the truth or fooling you into thinking something's better than it is, that's not that's not making meaningful change in the world. And it's not to shame anybody, and this is not like a virtue signaling thing. I think it's more about rewarding transparency and making sure that your food budget goes to the best, is used to the best of your intent. And so we want folks to be able to have the impact that they want to have, and to not waste money, especially in this tight economic times. So what else can you do? You could get someone a gift certificate to AGW certified farm or business. There's a bunch of folks that are doing not only products, but experiential things at farms. There's a number of ways you can support those businesses who are really going above and beyond. We talked about supporting and thanking certified farms and businesses. This is actually was one of our volunteer projects, just to appreciate folks, because it matters. It really does matter. And you can find those folks on our directory that you saw earlier. There are also a number of really great holiday specials. We've been working with our farms over the last 2 weeks to get a list of things that are on offer this holiday season. We've got some gift baskets. There's some limited edition cheese. There's what else? There's some jams, and there's caramels. There's all kinds of cool stuff. There's specials on meat boxes. So definitely check that out. And those are on our online shopping pages. So there's regional and national availability. This holiday season, if you are giving presents and you want to give someone the gift of being a monthly donor to A Greener World, we would love your support. We can't do this without donors. We are only able to do our work because of people who care about building a transparent food system. And without us, there would not be a lot of ways. I don't know if there would be any ways, honestly, to find food that you could be confident was raised in high welfare systems on pasture. So we really appreciate support from folks. You could volunteer for A Greener World. It doesn't all have to cost money. Time is valuable too, and we love our volunteers and are happy for any help. So feel free to sign up for that. Also, we invite you to join our email list and tell everybody you know about us. And we want to be here to help. So get in touch, sign up, follow us, and tag us, and include us in your life. We're happy to help wherever we can. So with that, I will turn it over to Lauren to help get some answers to some questions.
Yeah, we had some really great questions.
Cool.
And actually, I'm going to start with Sheila's question, which is in the Q&A box. If anybody else has any other, Hannah just asked a question as well. We'll start with these, and then I'll ask the other ones that were in the chat box. And if y'all want to add any to the Q&A box while we're going, that would be great. So Sheila's asking, what about pasture raised with certified humane labeling? Is that a better label than just pasture raised by itself?
So certified humane does have a pasture raised label. So if it is their pasture raised certification, that is more meaningful than just the claim pasture raised on its own. But I think that's a pretty limited availability in the marketplace. And I would need to check on this, but first I'm thinking that may only be for egg-laying hens. But if you get your information in the chat box, or email us, we can get you a solid answer on that. Great question, though.
Yeah. And then Devonna asks, where does lab-grown meat fit into the labeling system? And I think Devonna means, she asked that in the context of the natural label.
That is a great question. Lab meat. It's like, already start. We've written a lot of blogs about lab meat, and plant-based meat too, because it is a wild new world, and there are a lot of claims being made without anything to back them up. And as is often the case, we end up being the guinea pigs for new food technology. And as we've seen in the past with new food technology, a lot of times it ends up benefiting the shareholders more than anyone else. And so this is a very new technology, and I certainly wouldn't call it natural. I think there is a lot that remains unknown about lab meat. and a lot that we should be asking for proof of, and also proof that the existing systems, where are they insufficient? Like no one has convinced me that there is a need for that high welfare pasture-based systems are, in my opinion, and I think science backs this up, that those systems are superior. Like I would say confidently, high welfare pasture-based systems are superior to lab-based or plant-based meat. And if anyone has any science to the contrary, please share it. But there, a lot of times when people are trying to sell us on lab meat or plant-based meat, it is based on statistics that are drawn from industrial farming. And that is not an apples to apples comparison when it comes to high welfare sustainable systems. And it's a distraction on the need to transition to more high welfare sustainable systems, which really can deliver change, much needed change, without unknown side effects and crazy new technology. I hope that helped.
Yeah, great. And then this one is from Sarah. Where did people get the idea that organic addresses animal welfare? I hear this all the time from people who think they are buying humane animal products when they buy organic.
That's a great question. Sometimes there is a lot of associative marketing, which means using phrases that evoke the idea of stewardship or humane treatment. And we often see claims around humane treatment made alongside organic products, and unfortunately, those are not borne out in reality. And so, yeah, it's a challenge. Although I think people are starting to realize more and more the shortcomings of organic standards. I mean, especially after that campaign to add what little welfare standards were being attempted to add, to be added. But yeah, and until in the meantime, it is important to understand organic is not a meaningful welfare claim. And if that's what you're shopping for, then you need to look for another label, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then we have another question. I go to Amish markets for my meat. How are they classified? I think just in terms of the labeling that we're talking about.
I would say just like anything else. I wouldn't assume anything special just based on where you purchase your food. I think it's always worth asking, like no matter who you're buying from, even at a farmer's market, like and this was early, like, I've been at this for over 10 years. And one of my first experiences was talking to a producer at a farmer's market who shared that there was somebody coming to the farmer's market with conventional chicken that they had just bought, off of somebody at the slaughter plant, and marketing them as pasture raised birds from their own farm. And so, unfortunately, we like to think that everyone's trustworthy, and if you can talk to someone, you can trust them, but that's not always the case. And so many of our farmers that are certified actually pursue certification, even when they know their customers, as a demonstration of that trust that they and a validation of the trust that of the relationship that they have with their customers. So yeah, and also just to go back on the one before, why people may assume that organic has a welfare component when it doesn't. I think there's definitely an element in when we're shopping, we want to believe things are better than they are, and maybe are sometimes okay not knowing, or maybe even don't look too hard. And so it does depend when the labeling system is as opaque and as confusing intentionally in many ways. Companies make a lot of money claiming things without doing them. So in a food system like the way ours is set up now, unfortunately, you have to be pretty you have to be a bit of a detective, or at least take the same amount of study or care, information, get armed with information that you would to buy a new PlayStation, or any other purchase that matters, that you realize you're going to have an impact with.
Yeah. Okay, so Hannah asks, and this is a little bit similar to another question. So I'm going to ask these two questions together. I will only eat meat certified by a Greener World. Luckily, I live in an area with a Greener World farm, and it's wonderful. I would like to branch out from the products offered, but there is no local access to a Greener World beef, bison, or goat. What are your thoughts on balancing local and a Greener World access? And then this kind of goes along with another question from Sheila asking, why is the animal welfare label by a Greener World so hard to find? I would like to buy exclusively animal welfare approved products, but they cannot be found at her local grocery stores.
Well, to the first commenter, thank you. And I know our farms really appreciate it, and we absolutely do too. I would encourage you to look and see what's available online. We definitely have farms that ship beef and bison, I know. And I don't remember the other product, but that is definitely an option. And to the other commenter about local availability, ask for it. And I know that doesn't seem like an immediate fix, but you have so much power as a customer at a store. If you ask for a product and you get your friends to ask for it too, you can make a real impact. And I know it may take a little bit, but that means a lot, and that is way more impactful than me telling them, hey, you need to get, it would be great if you were offering some certified products, because I don't live there and I'm not shopping there, but you are. So yeah, that would be incredibly helpful. And in the meantime, that whole page about how you can get involved is incredibly helpful too. So yes, appreciate the sentiment and the drive, because you really can have a huge impact with that ask.
Great. And then that kind of dovetails a little bit into Tanya's question. And Tanya works at, I think, your local marketplace, Emily.
Yay!
Local meat is the best way to sell meat, correct?
Can you rephrase the question?
Well, I wonder if it's going back to kind of what Hannah and Sheila were asking about, like balancing wanting to buy or sell animal welfare approved meat, but then also wanting it to be local, and maybe which is more important. Oh, Tanya said she lost internet connection.
Oh no! Hey, I know. I'm in the same county as you, Tanya. I know all about it. It's going to be this spring before I get real internet. I think that if I'm understanding the question right, it's like, do you prioritize local over sustainable? I think that's a question that only you can answer, and your customers can help you answer. I'm really lucky that y'all's store near me actually has certified animal welfare approved pork that is also local. I personally, I think you can have a local farm that has really lame practices, so just because something's local doesn't mean it's any of the things that you would hope, environmentally sustainable and independent farmers and high welfare and all the above. It doesn't mean that. Local is not a production claim. It's not even a geographic claim in a lot of cases. Everyone defines that term differently. It could be within, the county, it could be within 2 days drive. It's very, it's incredibly variable. So yeah, I think that is, obviously shoring up and supporting and making sure that local economies are resilient is really important. But at the same time, you have to weigh what type of economy you're building and what type of food system you're building, and is that in line with your values? And so I know that we really appreciate being part of that, building a sustainable local food system.
Awesome. I know we're trying to end on time, but we've got two really great last questions that I hoped we could get to. One is Sheila, just following up on what you said earlier, Emily, about asking, farmers to, or like nominating farms and such. Sheila's asking, so the lack of animal welfare approved certified products is not because a lack of supply necessarily.
In terms of local supply, or in terms of, oh, like if farmers are doing those practices but aren't yet certified?
Possibly.
Okay. Yeah, if that, it's possible, and we would love to work with them. And so yes, if there are businesses or brands that you are a fan of, and you think that they could be certified, or should be certified, let us know. Put us in touch. We have a suggest a farm function on our website. And yeah, we would love to work with them. And if they don't get certified, I think there's reasons to ask them why not. Because sometimes the traceability isn't there, or the practices may not be what you think they are. So it's worth digging, and it's, you're buying their product. So I think you're fully within your rights to ask what exactly it is.
Great. And then one last question. Whose grass-fed certification, in addition to animal welfare approves, can we trust? Can we trust Certified Humane's grass-fed certification?
Do they have a grass-fed certification? If they do, then we'll need to add it to the comparison chart. I would definitely direct you to that comparison chart, because that is a really, really just comprehensive, whatever you care about or hope for in a grass-fed label, that comparison chart will give you a good sense of which labels are really delivering that for you. So yeah, that link will be in the webinar that we send out in the video afterwards. So. And also just a re-shout out to Tanya for showing up from Chatham Marketplace. And thank you guys for carrying AGW certified products. I buy them all the time. And I know those farmers, and they're good folks.
Great. I think that's all the questions that we had. And if you guys think of any oh wait, one more question from Hannah.
Please do.
I have more questions about farm distribution and if a greener world helps support. Can I contact you via email?
Absolutely,
great question
yes.
for everyone.
We do a lot on supply chain development. Our ED has a lot of experience in that realm, and that is, yes, we love to help on that. So please do get in touch.
Great, that's it. And I would say to anyone, feel free to reach out to us for any other questions you have via email.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all. I hope everybody's taking care, staying safe, and has some good, peaceful and quiet and joyous time over the holiday season. So take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.